Chapter 3. The first thing David Shaw noticed about the motel room was the smell. The tangy odor caused him to shudder. He breathed deep, hoping to get used to it. He'd be staying a few nights and didn't want any distractions of any kind. The bed creaked as he sat down on it. He tossed his bag down and thumbed the 4-digit lock. It clicked open. Inside were the tools of his trade. He looked over the knives and other sharp instruments, each one in their own sheath. David never cared for guns. They were too noisy and didn't give him the up-close and personal touch he liked. When he killed someone, he wanted to see the life drain from their eyes. He loved feeling their last breath on his cheek. After years of experimentation, he figured out the best way to take a life and never get caught. He unpacked the knives, then laid out his clothes. What he wore was almost as important as the knife he used. He was careful to keep an unassuming look about him. Short, brown hair. He wasn't very tall either. He blended into society like human wallpaper. Being inconspicuous was an essential part of the job, but it didn't come naturally for him, or so his therapist told him. He thought back to his time in therapy. After his dad caught him strangling a cat behind their house and finding numerous shallow graves of other dead animals, he was admitted to the psych ward. At the time, David couldn't understand why he was there. They were just strays. No one would miss them. He felt no remorse. If anything, he got a surge of adrenaline from watching the life leave them. He remembered the diagnosis: sociopath. So David played along, got released, and continued on his way. Unassuming, unremorseful. He picked up his phone and checked his email. Instructions were supposed to be sent to him once he arrived in Flagstaff. He scrolled through the seemingly endless spam mail folder until he found what he was waiting for. "Henry Peterson," he said. "Looks like I'll be paying you a visit." The alarm went off. David rolled over and switched it off. The sun hung low in the sky. He pulled out a protein bar and bottle of water. David never ate at restaurants. The less people who saw him, the better. He looked over his assortment of knives and picked out a K-bar and a boning knife. He slid them into pockets sewn into his jacket, picked up a small bag with a change of clothes, and walked out the door. The address took him into a small development. Cookie-cutter houses lined the street. It seemed the only thing to differentiate them from one another was the mailbox at the end of the driveway. David drove by his target's house. The car wasn't in the driveway. He drove out of the development and parked in a mall lot a mile away. He liked to walk, gave him time to visualize how he wanted the meeting to go. As he walked up the sidewalk, he took notice of the neighborhood. No one was outside. Streetlights glowed, and everyone was probably eating dinner. David moved to the back of the target's house and picked the back door lock. When his job took him to someone's home, he always looked around. How people lived fascinated him. Growing up, he and his father lived in a small 2-room house with a garage. He hated that house, except the fence around the backyard, which kept David's hobby from being noticed. Shortly after his 17th birthday, he decided to leave. He wasn't doing well in school, and his father never treated him the same after he was released from the hospital. David and his dad fought a lot. Most of the fights ended with a black eye, David's eye. He had a duffel bag packed when his dad came home from work one day. "Where do you think you're going?" "I was going to leave you a note," he told his father. "About what?" He dropped his lunch bag on his chair and walked into the kitchen. "I'm leaving. There's nothing here I need or want. Besides, you never really wanted me around." His father turned and stomped over to him, his face inches away. "You're not going anywhere, you little piece of crap." He poked David in the chest with every word. "You're not old enough or smart enough to make it on your own." He shoved him back a step or two. "You're so screwed up in the head, you'll be in prison before your next birthday, if you live that long." Another shove, only this time harder. He continued to scream at him. Something in David snapped. He saw his father yelling, but he heard nothing. Without thinking, he balled up his fist and punched him in the face. His father staggered back. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He tried to throw a haymaker, but David ducked under it, then ran toward him. David moved behind his dad and punched him in the back of the head. "I'll live a lot longer than you, old man." His father stumbled and tried to steady himself, but he lost his balance. He fell face first onto the hardwood floor, causing his nose to explode in a bloody mess. David moved in before his father could turn over. He kicked and stomped until there was no more movement. He went into the garage, grabbed the gas can they used for the mower, and emptied the contents onto the body and all around the room. When he got to the front door, he took one last look at his dead father and then lit the room on fire without a single thought. And he never looked back. After David finished rummaging through the house, he sat down in a recliner and waited. He checked his phone for the time. His target was late. He started to wonder if something was wrong when he saw lights through the living room window. It was time to get to work. He remained in the recliner as Henry Peterson came through the door. He was carrying a bag of groceries in each arm. He kicked the door closed and used his elbow to turn on the lights. "You kept me waiting," David said. "Grocery day? I have other things to do." Henry dropped the bags of food and took a step back. "What? Who are you?" he asked in a high-pitched voice. "What are you doing in my house? If you're here to rob me, I have—" David stood up and raised his hand. "Rob you? That's insulting. You insult me. I wouldn't abase myself with petty theft." "Then why are—" "Your employers are not happy with the course of action you plan on taking tomorrow, Henry." He walked around Henry as he spoke. "They're quite sure that the meeting you're going to have with the FBI will cause them unwanted scrutiny. I tried to talk to them," he said. "I showed them the data, but they buried it. So I'm going to do the right thing." David slapped Henry. He didn't care what this fool had to say. He wasn't getting paid to listen to a sob story. "You bore me." Henry cowered, but continued. "They're going to sell medicine that's dangerous to people, and the public has a right to know about it." David raised his hand, and Henry flinched. David chuckled a little inside. "What they sell or don't sell is none of your business." The irritation came back into his voice. "You work for them, and they make the decisions." "So why are you here? To talk me out of it? To scare me? Well, it won't work." With an unseen quickness, David grabbed the back of the poor guy's neck and plunged the K-bar into his abdomen. He forced the blade in as far as he could, then stabbed him over and over and over. 20, 30 times? David lost count. He let Henry's bloody body drop to the floor. Now came the messy part. David leaned over and cut out his tongue. Then he sliced Henry's gut wide open and disemboweled him. This would get the attention of anyone who thought about whistleblowing. Before he left, David went into the bathroom to change his clothes. He started to peel off his blood-soaked shirt when a shimmering light appeared around him. He looked around in confusion. He waved his hands in front of him, trying to swat it away to no avail. A tingling sensation crept in, first on his skin. Then it penetrated him so fiercely that his entire body started to vibrate. He tried to run but was frozen in place. Everything turned white for the briefest moment. As quickly as it began, it stopped. The lights, the vibration. And to David's surprise, he no longer stood in the bathroom. He was in a gray room with what looked like an operating table in the middle. Did I pass out? Am I dreaming? He walked over and felt the table. Metal. cold. An odd odor hung in the air, but he couldn't quite place it. A whooshing noise came from behind him, and he turned around. 3 figures moved on him with lightning-fast speed. Before he knew it, he was strapped to the table. A light shone in his eyes. He squinted to try to see better, but it didn't help. He struggled against his restraints until one of his captors spoke. "We are the Thiar. You are our champion." "Champion? What?" His anger rose, and he was more determined to escape his bonds. "You are going to be sorry when I get out of this." The threat failed to carry the kind of weight he hoped it would. In fact, he sounded more like one of his victims just before he killed them. "You will be remade. You will be our champion." A sharp pain pierced his arm, followed by a cold sensation coursing through his veins. Then he felt nothing. He saw hands, or at least what looked like hands, put a knife to his chest. He thought he was being cut open, but didn't feel any pain. Time stopped. He drifted in and out of a daze while his captors went about their work. When he was lucid, he heard clicks and chatter and thought that must be the alien's real language. When he was unconscious, he dreamed of alien space battles and worlds he only saw in sci-fi movies. Without warning, he was back in Henry Peterson's bathroom. He glanced down and realized something was different. He walked over to the mirror, but wait, am I floating? His feet lowered to the ground once he stopped moving. Who was this looking back at him? He tried to remember if he had always looked like this. He leaned in toward the mirror when a sharp pain ripped through his head. Everything suddenly became clear. He leaned in, scrutinizing his new self, and started to laugh. His voice now sounded like thousands of razor blades being dragged against a chalkboard. His laughing shattered the mirror. David Shaw was no more. In his place stood the champion of the Thiar, and there was no force on earth that could stop him.